All right, it is Sunday, the weekend of October 29th. Welcome to the Trader Hub Weekly Market Review. Let's go ahead and look at the price action for the indexes this week. Another down week for the markets, starting with the NQ. Bryce, do you see anything that stands out to you on this chart?
Well, we produced a lower low across the board there. And we actually, on this lower time frames, it's looking kind of ugly where it's come back up, but it hasn't done a whole lot, and we're coming back down. So I think we're looking for at least a lower low here most likely before it has the chance to come back. But it really looks like it could keep going here on all the time frames. Keep going down. What do you think?
I agree. I mean, obviously we talked about 15,000 kind of being the level that it had kept needing to regain after holding down there at about 14,600, and it just kept being unable to kind of hold above there. It kept retesting those lows at 14,600, and they finally gave way. So I see now, if it's going to regain the trend and have any chance of retesting the upside, this area that was previously support is now going to act as resistance. It has to gain this again or move lower. Interestingly, we had in kind of an interaction with like the last area to test before producing this move to the last high. So this is kind of the last area that I see before we lose another 800 points. This has to hold, or the NASDAQ is going towards 13,600 in a hurry. Like you pointed out, the lower time frames don't look good, but that's kind of what I see, needing to regain 14,600 or move lower. Not much else to say. Let's go ahead and move on to the ES. Any differences there, in your opinion?
It's right at the levels that we were kind of expecting. Let's look at the higher time frame there on the weekly. We were hoping for a hold in this area with all these wicks, but it did actually come a little bit lower. We've got this level at 4,100. I think that's very likely it'll get there. It actually looks like this is a very good support area. We could probably put a box right there, but I think that's a really good spot for it to hold on the weekly, as well as the daily, coming down below this wick here that produced the giant leg before it gets a chance to come back up above.
Yeah, I see that level too. And if we look at the weekly from, I think it was 22 to 21, there's a bunch of support at that level as well that kind of interacted with to produce the current all-time high. So that's why 4,100 looks kind of like the quintessential level to hold. I think if that doesn't hold, we could go all the way down to 3,800 on the S&P. So that's a pretty big drawdown. If we're just looking at those higher time frame levels, I'm not ready to call necessarily a really high time frame lower high, like on the monthly charts. On a lot of these charts, you could argue that we've already put in a monthly lower high, which is very bad for the markets. But I think we need to see whether or not these key levels hold first, and if we can get a bounce from there, could just be noise on the way back up. But if 4,100 doesn't hold, it's going to look pretty bad. But it's also the best looking level to hold for a bounce back to the highs. So a little bit of a difference there. Maybe the level is a bit stronger for the S&P than the current level that it's at for the NASDAQ, so a bit of a divergence there. We'll just have to kind of see whether or not we hold here at 4,100 or not. But that's kind of what I see on the chart. Let's go ahead and move on to the RTY. We'd kind of called that things started looking pretty bearish in the last couple of weeks, and certainly we've gotten back down to the lows of this range on the small caps here. Really don't see any signs of stopping here. Personally, I think that we're going to end up touching this box, so probably closer to 1,620, potentially as low as 1,550-ish, 1,560-ish right there. And the reason that we like that is if we look back toward this area that consolidated and then broke out to produce the last high, that's kind of the major area of consolidation. So we know that's an important level there. The reason that I'm not inclined to believe that these will hold, even though it's not too much further down to the areas that we're talking about, is that those were already tested. So I think that a lot of the liquidity that was slurped to produce these moves is already gone from here. So I think that we're very likely to see lower on this chart. I don't see any reason, just looking at it, why we wouldn't see lower. Do you see anything that I don't?
Nope. It needs to go lower since it didn't achieve up here. It needs to produce a lower low so that it has the liquidity to keep going back up. I think that's the next area where it could find that liquidity before it has the fuel to go higher.
Yeah, and those areas that we've marked up there, particularly that higher box, it's actually a great level for a long. It is a range down there, right? So that's the high of the range, the low of the range down here. Both of those areas could be great holds. So they just offer great risk to reward to target the highs. So that's kind of why we're looking at those areas. If we look at gold has had quite a run. Not sure why on the side it says it's 1998. It's actually 2016. So it has had a huge run in the last couple of weeks. We went all the way down from the 1800s back to 2000s in a hurry, blasting through all of these previous support that were broken and supposed to act as resistance, just flew right through those. So this is the time of commodities, all this uncertainty in the markets. Flight to safety, get these big gold moves. We've broken above every major level that I can find on the chart other than the all-time high. So I personally believe that we are moving straight to all-time highs. So back to 2000, we have it marked 2078. I think 2080 is pretty clean target on gold, and we've been at those highs so many times. Talking about tested levels, I don't see any reason why gold wouldn't make a new all-time high. I firmly believe that we're going to see a new all-time high on gold in the next year. What do you think?
I agree. I think that in this move here, it's important that gold stays above 2000. This red level is the important level for it to continue on its trend, basically straight up. That doesn't mean that if it goes below that, there isn't a place for a long. It's just for current longs, they want to see this level hold. And I think we'll see that, and we will make that all-time high up at 2080-ish.
Yeah, I'm not sure where it is exactly, but we're getting close.
I think it's right there, 2085.4.
Cool. Yeah, no reason to be bearish on gold after that big reversal. Mm-hmm. We'll cover the Dow. The Dow's been, we had talked about it having some weak movements, retracing up here and probably seeing new lows. We got our lower low here. As far as the other indexes, this one hasn't been as beaten down as the others, just a lack of tech weighting. But as far as the technicals are concerned, there isn't a whole lot in the way of further downside on the Dow. A lot of the major levels, have been kind of closed below. We don't actually have one marked here, but if I look on the weekly right there, that's clearly was a major area. And all these other holds from the previous, move back to the highs have been broken below, except for this one down here. So where are we now? 30,500. That's another 800 points on the Dow. So I personally see a little bit of further downside here. I think the nicest area for potentially taking a reversal trade on the long is 31,300-ish, around there. But that signifies kind of a major drawdown there. It's a couple, 3.3%. I personally just see more downside on the Dow. What do you think?
I think we have a similar idea on where that's going to head. Is right about in that level there, producing a lower low.
Yeah.
Against this move that didn't quite achieve, and then we could see an upward motion here.
Yeah. Well, we'll just have to see where it catches a bid, if it even does. I mean, there's a long way down, so I don't. Other than talking about those levels, there's not really much to say until we see some more price action. Oil. Why don't you talk about oil? It's had kind kind of an interesting week or two.
Yeah, let's look at it. So oil came down again to this level and held, and it's been doing a lot of ranging between the previous level that was attempted to hold on Monday, but it came right back down. So there's this ranging here, and that's just scooping up liquidity before, and we expect to see higher highs coming back here on gold. It did close up above at these levels, so this downward movement is pretty expected to hold because of this upward pressure. And on the 4-hour, you can see how much it was just ping-ponging back and forth. That tells me that someone's loading up a large position in this area, expecting higher. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I see the same thing. I think if you were watching oil like a hawk, you could say oil lost the 4-hour trend last week when it broke below 85. But the thing is, always use the higher time frame, right? So the daily trend is unchanged. We're still firmly up. Same thing for the weekly, right? It actually looks really good on the weekly. You could say the 4-hour didn't hold, but look at the weekly. 2 wicks down there that closed above, quite well above that range after wicking in there. So that just tells you that there's a lot of interest, as we've been saying, at that area, and that now it's acting in the other way, right? It was resistance, now it's support. So this still screams higher to us. I think we're going to see 100. Making the similar call about gold, I think we'll see oil over 100 within the next year. When I say year, I mean 365 calendar days, not by the end of the year. But I think oil's got nowhere to go but up. So that's what we think about oil. What do you think about the dollar? Dollar had really interesting price action this week, actually.
So it came down and actually wicked into a lower low, and had this big move back up. And so it's kind of at a make or break level here. It did make a higher high above this previous one, so it's interesting that it came up above it as well as it started below on that move. So I mean, it really looks like higher to me. On the weekly, we have a similar look where we'd want to see it hold the low of the move there. And on the 4-hour, first of all, that's a wild 4-hour candle right there on Tuesday morning even. So it really looks good for higher here. And we haven't really lost anything on the 4-hour. It just came down to test it, and so that's why we expect up. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's been interesting. I mentioned, I think the week before, or the week before that, I'm not sure, but that I really did not like an equal low look here. And so I thought when we broke this, I was like, okay, we're probably going to go to 104.6. But again, like you said, just an absolutely wild 4-hour candle. This to me was a loss of the trend, but then we just regained it immediately. So I think the look here was, constantly making lower highs, so we had to go lower. Now that we've regained this, I think that you have to lose something down here, 106, something like that again. The trend has restarted. I see that the fact that this can't break down out of 105, 106 tells you that the dollar is going to go up, which, we've been saying for a little while now about like the macro trend, but if these pullbacks continue, that maybe we would see a little bit more downside before higher. It just looks like it doesn't want to go down. It just wants to go straight to 109s, I think, is kind of where we're headed. So I think this was the area where if it was going to break down further, it would have done it there. I think we're just going to see higher on the dollar in a hurry. Let's go ahead and talk about the KRE. KRE's, like we said, it needed to kind of hold certain areas and they were lost. So this week is a bit more chop, but it did come back to this 3850 level. So we've lost most of the lower time frame trends, including the daily level. And I would say this is kind of a weekly loss as well. The monthly trend is still intact, so that's not quite the end of the world yet. But we need to see some important levels gained again. We need to see 4250 regained. So until that happens, I still see lower on the KRE. Although we are starting to get into some good levels if you want to take the risk toward the upside, and we got into some great risk to reward price levels. But if 3850 breaks, the problem is I see it coming down quite a bit more. We have 3650 marked, 36 even. It's just a good amount of downside if those levels don't hold, especially if we're talking about the monthly. If that trend doesn't hold, we're going down to 33, 32. So yeah, banks are in a weird spot. What do you think about those?
I think if you're going to long it, you need to wait just a little bit more, and you'd want to see it come up above, and then you could long a level in this area for expecting higher. But I wouldn't long it where it is now. It had a great Thursday, but it didn't hold and came back and immediately tested. So you really would have preferred to see Friday close up at these levels, and then this would have been a great percentage win rate for a long to target 40-ish or 42,
something like that. Yeah, I mean, you would need to see some kind of trend reversal first, otherwise you're just catching the falling knife at this point. So like if we maybe something like see this level regained, come back down, try to regain up here, and then maybe come back down and take a long, maybe somewhere around here after, something like that. You'd be doing something like that. That's kind of what I would look for, and you'd want to be long there. You don't want to take the gamble on a failure or something like that. Anyway, that's kind of how I look at taking those trades.
Yep, absolutely.
Cool. Well, I think we've covered it all. Interesting week. Gonna really be interesting to see what happens in the next week. The Feds are speaking, so if nothing else, it'll be very volatile. It'll be an interesting week. We'll want to be watching the charts closely. Anyways, thanks for tuning in to the Trader Hub Weekly Market Review. If you like this kind of content, sub to the Hub and consider joining our Trader Hub Discord community server. You can find it using our link in the description. See you next week.
Take care.